do that. And then when they take the word God and they take the word Jerusalem out of their platform, but then they put it back in. Now, I didn't have a real problem. I mean, I knew what they were, and maybe that's the wrong way to state it, was when they took it out and that it was bad. But what I found was worse, and what really made me decide that I'm going to change, I don't know if I'm going to go Republican or independent. I'm probably leaning towards independent. But if I was, when they voted it or they took it out, and then they had so much heat being placed on them that they said, we got to put it back in. And then they have this vote. And if you would have seen that vote, I'm sure you heard it on TV, where they had to go 3 times, and they still didn't get the votes to pass it, but they passed it because it was on his screen in front of him that said, told him what to say. When you get that many people in a hall that can support, now this wasn't the leadership, this was the rank and file person. When you have that many people that can sit in a hall and support the removal of the word God and removal of the word Jerusalem and allow, they didn't talk about the other things that they didn't put back in that they removed, was that it used to be in the Democratic platform that we honored Israel's borders. Well, they took that out. And they never put that back into their platform. So now we have a platform that, even though it's back, I think it was only back because they knew they had a loser on their hand. And there was in my humble opinion, there was no way that the yeas took 2/3 of that vote. That's pretty even. And they should have went to a count, but they didn't. They didn't want to do that because they thought they would have lost it too. So when you have that many people in a party, not counting leadership, that wants to keep God out of their party and wants to support all the things of the world, I want no part of it. That's why tomorrow morning I'll be changing my party registration. And again, I don't know if I'm going to go independent or Republican. I'm leaning independent, but the only problem, I can't vote in the primary. So, and I've always been pretty involved in it, so I'll make my decision there. And I'm not asking anybody else to do that. I'm just saying that for the first time and I've taken that stand, and I've always stood, it didn't matter, but now it does matter, and I want my name tied to something like that. Because I think that at that point, I repeat this a lot of times, when I face God, I don't want a lot of questions answered I can't answer. I want it when he says to me, well, how come you stood with the party, you stood for stuff like that? I don't want to say, well, it didn't really matter. I don't think he's going to buy that idea. So, fear. That's the other one, 364 times. It's twice as much as knowledge. And I have a lot of fear in my heart for God because he can be vicious when he wants to be. And that's good. A couple other things, just, with knowledge that we have to watch for. And we have to watch what's going on. This is kind of, half, I don't want to say political, but it's half of what's going on in the world and wanting to be prepared so that we don't get caught off guard. There's a few things that were in the newspaper in the business section last week that I don't know if anybody caught, but the one that says Dominion to sell coal-fired plants. Wow, another part, the Obama administration has put so many, the EPA, he tried to kill coal before, but they've put so many regulations on power plants today, and I know this for a fact, I live near 2 of them, and a lot of my friends still work at them, that it's making it almost impossible to keep a coal-fired power plant alive. So the first article in the newspaper said that the actual wording on it was Dominion to sell coal-fired plants, focusing on less volatile regulated businesses. That's pretty bad. And then you read down a little further, there's another article. It says coal production down 4.8% due to lower utility demands. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure why the coal product. If you keep shutting down power plants that don't use coal, there's no need for coal. Majority of our coal today that's being mined in the United States isn't going to power plants anymore. It's going to China. I don't know if everybody knew that, but that's a fact. That most of the good coal in the United States today is being shipped to China. Now, some of the coal plants are converting over to natural gas, which isn't bad, but it's very costly, and everything that goes on is going to reflect in your bills. I mean, you're going to pay for it one way or the other. And you're putting a lot of good people out of work. When you lose that much, it works out to almost 5 million tons of coal reduced in the last quarter. And it was down again the quarter before that. These are all things that it's signs. I mean, this administration that's in there right now, through the EPA, they're doing everything they can to change the United States. He tells you that. I mean, I don't know if people understand that, but that's why knowledge is so important. Because God forbid if this guy wins again. And he just may. I mean, you talk to some people out on the streets. I was at an outing a couple of weeks ago with two carpenter reps, and I used to be a union rep. And we were talking and got on to politics as it always would. And I says, "Who you guys supporting?" And they said, "Oh, we're voting with our wallets." I said, "Oh, then you're going on the Republican side." He said, "Oh, no." And I thought to myself, and then I asked him, I said, "How in the world you as a trade union can support, say you're voting with your wallets, but he's done nothing to hurt the trade unions?" And that's a fact. I mean, you got the stimulus money didn't go to trade unions. It went to school teachers, federal employees, state employees. I mean, 7.7% of the stimulus money went to construction. So, you have to, again, these people, they look at one thing, but they don't look at the whole thing, and that's where you need knowledge. You got to have the knowledge to look at everything and make your own decisions. And I don't know if anybody, how you feel, but all in all, I mean, it's just like this man has this country in a trance. They don't acknowledge any of his wrongdoings. I mean, if George Bush, and I wasn't real happy with George Bush all the time, but if he'd have done half the stuff that this guy had done, they'd have crucified him or they would have thrown him out of office. The papers would have, the newspapers, the media. He couldn't do nothing right. But all the stuff that this guy gets away with, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Take Fast and Furious. Maybe I'm getting offhand, but anyway. Look at, they killed American agents, and nothing's being said about it. I mean, he tied up everything in courts. Nobody will find out what happened to it. But it all came from the White House. And the major part of this thing was to get gun bans, to get back into where they could ban all the guns. That's what it was all about, but it failed. Another thing, they make a big deal about when Bush was in office, the people that got off. What about that governor of New Jersey that took over that firm, lost $6 billion of people's money? Nobody cares. They're not going to prosecute him at all. $6 billion. I mean, they put the other guy in New York in prison forever for doing kind of stuff like that. But him, he's getting away with it because he was a supporter of the family. It's just remarkable to see how we ignore things like that. I could go on and on, but there's so many issues. At times it drives you crazy when you sit there and you realize that our country's going down the tubes and we're fast approaching the end times. And it seems like what we have in office right now is cooperating. There's not a lot of support to go the other way. Everything seems to be going towards the enemy's way. And I guess, when you get back into the Bible, when it says in the last days, he's going to pour out everything, and he's sure doing it. And one thing that comes back to my mind, I mentioned the other day, it really bothers me. We have a president in office that has major celebrations for Islamic holidays. Major celebrations. Typical celebrations for Easter and Christmas. I mean, you don't see all the hoopla when it comes to the Christian holidays. I mean, he has an Easter egg roll, okay? And he invites all the politicians to the White House for a Christmas party. That's it. But when it comes to Ramadan, we have state dinners. When we have the leaders of some countries that want to throw us under the bus, come to the White House, we have state dinners for them. But when Israel, our friends, come to the White House, he goes out to have lunch with his kids and leaves the president sit there by himself. I mean, and nobody says nothing about it. Nobody says anything. Maybe I'm getting off track too much. Unemployment rate this week. Everybody at the end, when the Democratic committee was done, they said the unemployment dropped off to 8%. Do everybody understand how these numbers are compiled? As a ex-business agent for the unions, I'm well aware of it. When you run out of unemployment, you are no longer counted on the work rolls. And really easy to show you, at the last time that the unemployment went down to 8.1 and it rose to 8.3 is when they put an extension in for unemployment past the 90 weeks. And then the people that were already out of unemployment, they went back and get those extra weeks. They were added to the work rolls, and the unemployment numbers went up. So now there was 348,000, I think it was 348,000 people that ran out of unemployment checks, so they're no longer counted. Somebody said if the true numbers were counted, we're somewhere around 14 to 16% unemployment in the country, the ones that are out of work. But yet, he gets a pass on it. They say things are booming, or things are starting to boom. Can't prove it by me. And again, I don't want to get too far away from what I'm trying to say is that in the Bible, God talks about knowledge, and he wants us to be aware of what's everything going on. He wants us to know these things, and so that we can see these things and be prepared for these things and react to these things. And what we have to do is we have to start talking to other people. I mean, as good, God-fearing Christians, I don't think it's really fair for us to keep this all to ourselves. Sometimes it's fear. I mean, it's hard sometimes to approach somebody and tell them, hey, I'm a Christian, or hey, do you know God, or do you know the Lord, or this is right and this is wrong. I mean, it's hard to approach anybody when they know it's wrong and they don't know God. I think we have to spend more time at spreading the knowledge that we are given to other people and try to help, no matter what it appears to be. Sometimes the littlest thing can go a long, long way. A little bit of knowledge to somebody you may not think will help, but somewhere down the line that pops in his head or her head, and zap, everything changes around and goes another way. Peter in 2 Peter 3, 17 through 18, grow in the grace of knowledge. We must stand up for God and it mainly says grow in the grace of knowledge. And when you do grow in the grace of knowledge, that gives us a better chance of standing up to what the enemy today is trying to do to his people, to us, with the half-truths, the innuendos. I mean, we have to know what's right. We have to be able to go out there and stand up for our principles and not be chastised or be afraid of the enemy and what he's doing to us. And when they can do what they're doing today and get away with it, it just amazes me. It just puts me into another dimension. I lost my place. The Bible mentions, I said, fear 354 times. So God must feel it's pretty important. I believe God has blessed America, and that's why she's so great. And God had compassion for America, and that's how she grew. America is such a compassionate country. It irritates me when I see a man that's supposedly our leader going around bad-mouthing us all the time and bad-mouthing to people. There's no other country in the world that has given so much to everybody, that has helped so many people, that to say that, we've